I'm sure. Dan and Christina, thank you both so very much for being here. If you are on, I understand if you guys are driving, but if you are at home or in your office and able to turn your camera on, that would be so absolutely wonderful. So we could see your beautiful shining faces. And we could also see if you have a question or anything and want to raise your hand. Sometimes it's just even easier to do it in your little Zoom box. Because we have great content planned for you today. And we also want this to be open mic. If you guys have any questions, Dan and Christina both have their niche in certain areas of investing. So feel free to unmic, ask a question, or unmute, that is, and ask a question, and we'll let things ride from there. So Dan and Christina, thank you both very much for being here. I will first get started with Dan. And I want to let you guys know as well, today's class, it's two-part. One, I want you to take away if you are personally starting your investing journey and building wealth through real estate, or in addition, if you want to educate your investors that you're hopefully working with. Because as we go into this shifting market, investors are going to be a great asset to have. So without further ado, Dan, go ahead and introduce yourself and maybe share a little bit of your story, what your niche is in investing, and we will go from there.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for having me on today, Jill, too. Really appreciate this opportunity. And I want to provide as much value as possible, too. So I'm excited to dive in here. I'm licensed as a real estate agent since 2015. I am now only doing short-term rentals on Airbnb and VRBO, but I have a little bit of experience with everything. So started as an agent in 2015, was selling right around 40 units a year. Also, I was the productivity coach for KW, averaged about 30 agents, and absolutely love that. After that, I started my family, realized that I wasn't being the dad and the husband I wanted to be. I was just constantly running around crazy. So that's when I walked away from the agent side as well as coaching, and I got into investing. My first investment deal, I was a minority owner in a 70-unit apartment building. Um, didn't bring any cash, any of my own cash to closing, and I was a very minority owner. I was like 5 or 7%, something like that. But I was the one that found the deal, put it under contract, and then found a partner who's bankable. I did another 30 units, so a total of 100 apartment units, and COVID happened, and I learned that it wasn't for me really anymore. And with walking away from the agent stuff, like I needed to figure something else out. So that's when I got into single family flips, had some success with that. Admittedly, wasn't my suit either. And at the time, I was also doing Airbnb as kind of like a hobby. My wife and I, we purchased a small little house for like $65,000 down in Carrollton, Ohio. And it didn't have cell service, it didn't have internet. And it was just kind of a like, hey, let's get off the grid and just kind of chill out for a weekend. That then became an Airbnb. And that's how I got kind of started with the Airbnb stuff. So that was my first one. I had two other ones up in Cleveland. The one was with one part, and then ultimately my now business partner, who's also my best friend, we've teamed up and created greenhouse renovations and home hop. So we own 9 Airbnbs ourselves. We manage another 8 for other Airbnb owners in the Northeast Ohio area. And then we also just launched a fund, which will allow us to buy another 15 to 20 or so.
Wow. So would you say your real estate business is primarily short-term rentals now only?
Yeah, that's all we do now. Really, like I'll occasionally do some other stuff, but it's primarily like, yeah, all short-term rentals now.
That is so incredible. And as I'm hearing your story, I love hearing, where you had 40 units, you were a PC coach and loved that, but also it's that work-life balance and finding the niche that gives you passion. Can you even talk a little bit about like what motivated you to keep searching for what was bringing you joy and not like just giving up on things when you said wasn't working for family life? What kept you going in that time?
Um, I honestly loved coaching. Like I legitimately enjoyed it. So that was tougher for me to walk away than the agent stuff. Um, and the agent stuff, like that was it was fun. I feel like that's what got me started in real estate. And I really did enjoy it for a while. And then it just I was just running around crazy. Like there was one point in time I was sitting on the couch writing up an offer, and this is after working all day, coaching all day, and then I would go around buyers, and then I'm sitting on the couch at like 8 o'clock at night writing up an offer, and my daughter comes up to me wanting to play, and I'm like, "Hold on, give me 10 more minutes. I have to finish her." And then once I finished, I was like, "What am I doing?" Like I felt like I was that dad in the movie saying like, "Oh yeah, give me," and misses his kids' birthdays and all this stuff, and like at that point I didn't go to one of my daughter's ballet classes, which now looking back is just like kind of mind blowing because now I go to every single one. Um, and what kept me going was you mentioned life, like work-life balance. I don't think anybody can perfect that 100%, but I think it's just about being conscious about it. So, okay, I'm spending a lot of time at work and not enough time with family. Like, what do we need to adjust? And I'm really fortunate to have a great business partner. So I just had that conversation with him, like, hey, this week, 5 o'clock, I'm done. Like, I need to spend time with the family. We're going to start doing things, so on and so forth. And then come Monday, like it's a grind. Next week's a new week, and I might get up a little bit earlier to start a little bit earlier on work, which allows me to spend a little bit more time with family at the end of the day.
Awesome. Thank you. I didn't mean to dive into that, but I just feel like on this call, I think I know it's about investing, but that's something that so many of us can relate to. So I wanted to dive in there.
For sure.
Well, Dan, let's talk about Airbnb for a little bit, and then we'll get to you, Christina. So I'm sure if you're not on the call, or if you haven't heard that Airbnb laws are changing, or short-term rental laws are changing, they are. How are you easing fears of Airbnb owners as city laws are ever changing? And is it causing you to do your business any differently because of it?
A little bit. We like to diversify and not just put all of our eggs into one basket or like one area. So right now in Cleveland, they're kind of like there are regulations, but there's no like processes or like paperwork or permits to actually like go through. And nothing is enforced. So we're actually it's funny you mentioned that. I was talking to my partner today on this. We are in talks with one of Cleveland's city councilmen because we do believe in regulations. We believe like there is some sort of system and process, like permitting process that needs to go in place because it's hosts that don't care about their properties, and that's where neighbors start to get upset and trash not being taken out and just people being loud, and we don't want that either as hosts. It gives us all a bad name. So we're all for regulations, and we're working with that particular councilman to kind of help facilitate that and give our ideas. Um, and on top of that is, like I said, just diversifying into different areas. So we have a handful of rentals in Cleveland. We have a handful in Parma Heights. We really like Parma because they do have regulations and there's clear-cut rules. So like, hey, you have to do this and you're good to go. And we're fine with all that. Um, and then we're just like, yeah, in different areas. So Parma Heights, Berea, Cleveland, University Heights. We're looking in Lakewood, Akron, all sorts of different areas. So like if we do have, let's say we had 20 Airbnbs in Parma, and then all of a sudden they say we're changing things up and we're banning Airbnbs, like that would leave us in a very tough spot. So just kind of spreading things out a little bit.
Okay. So if I'm hearing you, it is still safe for an investor to purchase their first Airbnb. Like there's still money to be had. Um, what advice would you give to an agent who's on the call who possibly wants to purchase their first Airbnb, or they're working with an investor who does? what's the best way? Like, what things should they be looking for? Are there any areas in particular that are the best? Like, what would be their safest first Airbnb purchase or short-term rental purchase?
Um, Safe is kind of a scary word. I mean, there's definitely risk with everything. Um, but I would say like if you can buy a house, the biggest thing is like if you're coming to Cleveland, would you want to stay in that area or that neighborhood? So that's the first question I would ask yourself. Second is you want to have at least three bedrooms. There's a lot of competition with one bedroom, two bedroom. So at least three bedrooms, and preferably four. Like if you can get a four bedroom or even just like a three bedroom that can sleep at least eight, that's huge. Second thing to consider is you don't want to be far from downtown. So a lot of our properties, even like Gordon Square, Ohio City, Tremont, we love those little neighborhoods, but also some suburbs. So like Lakewood, Parma Heights. Those are, I would say, those are to me like good suburbs. Like I can go to those suburbs and walk around and I can feel okay. Like without getting too far into the nitty gritty. Like I feel okay like walking around at nighttime.
Mhm.
So that's the big thing too. And then after that, it's just there's a lot that goes into it as far as like decorating and pricing and just a lot of systems and processes. And I'm happy to always have that conversation with people too if they help. But those are the main things I would focus on.
Do you think people put more money into renovations of an Airbnb or more money into furnishing the Airbnb?
So you're kind of cutting out there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It
Mine
might all
is too. I don't know if whose internet it is. Um, the question was, would you advise people to are they going to expect more money in renovations of the short-term rental or putting more money into furnishing the short-term rental?
That is a great question. And that's honestly, if you're new, an even better way to start. And I'll give a quick story on this. So the answer is there's no right or wrong answer. Um, and a fantastic way to start, especially if you're limited on capital, is go and find a really good deal and the money will come. You can always partner with somebody on your first deal who has the capital, and now you guys can be 50-50 partners. So like the way I started is I went out on trash day and I knew in areas that I wanted to buy in when trash day was. Like if that Cleveland has a trash map where you can see the days that trash gets picked up. So I would drive around on trash day in neighborhoods that I was interested in buying in. And for every single house that didn't have a trash can out, I would write down their address and I would look the owner up and I would call them up and I would say, hey, I'm not sure if your house is vacant or what your plans are, but I want to call and see if you'd have any interest in selling the house. So with that route, you're hitting sellers before they hit the MLS. And that was my first Airbnb in Cleveland. That's how I got my first Airbnb. I called him up. He's like, yeah, I actually don't live there anymore. I live out of state. And yes, I'd sell it. I'm going to be in town in a couple of weeks if you want to meet. So met the seller over there. It was a distressed house. Um, I knew that if I found a good deal, I could find a partner. So I found the good deal. I found a JV partner and we went 50-50 on it. And the cool thing with if you negotiate the deal the right way, um, you can do a cash out refi. So this is called the Burr method. Buy, and Christina might get into this. I think she probably uses this more than I do now. But buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. So once we went in, I think we bought it for like $60,000. We went in, we fixed it up, and once we were done fixing it up, it was worth maybe 180. So what happened is at that point we did a cash out refi. So I got, I think it was like 15 to 20 grand in my pocket, tax free because it's tax proceeds instead of capital gain. My partner got 15 to 20 grand. And then I think we had some left over to furnish the house. So not only did we get money in our pocket, now we have a cash flowing Airbnb. And then whenever that time comes to sell, we can sell, which we ultimately did, I think about a year or so ago now. So I know that was kind of long-winded, but there's a lot of different routes you can go. If you have capital, if you don't have capital, and then to furnish the house, to do it the right way, a three-bedroom, like 1,600 square foot house, again, doing it the right way is going to cost around like 17 to 20 grand.
Okay. Where have you noticed, where can you cut corners and where should you spend money on furnishings?
So our interior designer, she does a lot of thrifting, so she'll go to a lot of thrift stores. But honestly, like people hear that 17 to 20 grand in furnishings. I wouldn't cut corners on furnishing. We did that in the beginning and we got like cheap couches, like the click fold down futon mattresses, just like, cheap furniture, and it just breaks very quickly. So like within 1 to 2 months, you're replacing furniture and it turns into a headache. And then you have people there that can't use the couch and it's just a nightmare. So what I would recommend is opening up a business credit card and put all of your furniture on credit card. And with that, you're going to get your credit card points. And then also, as your revenue comes in from Airbnb, use all of that to pay off your credit card. And then once that's gone, like you're all set.
That's a great idea.
Does that make sense?
Yes, that absolutely does.
Awesome.
And I might have asked this already in a way, but do you notice, is there a certain type of property that has the most success, whether it is single family, multifamily, apartment, condo? Is there any certain type of property that's given you more success?
We focus on single family homes. The way I look at it, we're about to manage our first multifamily, but we've tried to stay away from that just from stories from other hosts in the areas. But when you think about it, like when somebody books an Airbnb, they're booking it because they want a house to themselves, not something that's shared or somebody walking around upstairs. If they were interested in that, they'd probably do a hotel, which is probably even cheaper. So we focus on single families. That's what's been really profitable for us. But we are about to manage our first multifamily, which is a duplex.
Okay. I wanted to ask that question because my little sister had a bachelorette party this summer in Nashville and it was a duplex and she had like 20 girls. So she had 10 on each side. And I thought, huh, I never thought really of a multifamily, but I could see it working.
Yes.
Now, do you see any difference between, I heard you say you use both Airbnb and Verbo platforms. Is there a difference? Do you get better return from one or the other? And then we'll get to you, Mark.
Yeah, I would say like 90% of our bookings come through Airbnb, and then like another 10% or so are Verbo. And it's also really weird. Like we have a house in Berea, and it's probably more like 60-40 Airbnb Verbo. For whatever reason, like Verbo's really popular with Berea. And I don't know if that's because of the college and maybe Verbo's popular in other states where our guests are coming from, but it's primarily Airbnb.
Okay. Mark, what do you have?
Yeah, I'm curious, Dan. So I've not done anything in the short-term space. I've done a fair amount in the long-term space. And so I'm familiar with the numbers, kind of like how I would underwrite a property or kind of cash on cash expectations. But short-term is an entirely different business model with different expenses and different outlay. I'm curious just if you have a quick and dirty number that you look for to see if a property is worth evaluating, like how you analyze the viability of a property from a number standpoint.
Yeah, so we kind of just know now, like with having property in the area, but I would say like if you do things the right way, so you have a house that like the furnishings look good, the remodel finishes look good, like nice kitchen, nice living room, nice bathrooms, and it's in one of those areas I mentioned earlier, and it's a three bed, let's say it can sleep at least 7, 8 people, you're gonna be around like grossing 60 grand a year in rental income. And then from there, you're just gonna back out like your PITI maintenance, but you're probably going to be around like a 20 to 24 grand net on that. So about 20 to 24 grand net per property owned.
Just a quick follow-up and then I'll let you guys continue. What assumptions do you make as regards to occupancy? So obviously 50% occupancy is going to be different than 100% occupancy. Year one, I'm assuming it's going to be a little bit slower as you build momentum than year two would be. Is that 60 grand assuming, what's that assuming about?
So those were our actual numbers, and it's kind of a tough question because short-term rentals are so seasonal. And like even seasonal, like you have your slow winter, you have busy winter because of the holidays. Spring and summertime are absolutely, just on fire. But I would say spring and summertime, you're going to be at around like 80% occupancy, maybe 85%. Fall time slows down a little bit, probably 70, 75. Winter, it's kind of like two different winters. So winter with the holidays, you're probably at like, again, 70, maybe 60, 65%. And then January to about April, you're dead. You're probably closer to like 40%. So it's kind of a loaded question. We don't really look at occupancy. We have different KPIs that are focused more on our average daily rate. So our average daily rate for nights that are booked, and then something else called RevPAR. But that's again a short answer to your question. Is
Helpful.
It's very, very seasonal.
Understood. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question, Mark. One more question, and I might get back to some others, but one last thing I wanted to ask you is, it is still a seller's market in real estate. And I hear a lot of people saying, if you're looking for business, get your investors to sell right now. If you have a client considering selling, when would you recommend to keep holding their Airbnb, and when would you recommend for them to sell in this current market?
That's a great question because I haven't even thought about selling. The the way I think about it is I want to hold everything as long as I can. Um, because just look at the appreciation. So like agents, look at if you know anybody that bought a house, let's say 5, 10 years ago, and look at what their house is worth today. When you multiply that by like, so we have 9 properties plus our funds, we'll be getting another 15 to 20. Like, think about like how much each property is appreciating over just like the span of the last 5 years. So like we don't specifically have any interest in selling anytime soon. Christina might be able to give a better answer on that. Um, but I would also say like it's best to sell when the market's hot, and it's best to buy when the market's slow and there's fear.
For sure. Thank you so much, Dan.
Yeah,
Did anybody have any other specific questions for Dan before we move over to Christina and hear a little bit from her? Okay, we might get back to you, Dan. So Christina, go ahead and unmute yourself. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. Could you just introduce yourself, explain what your niche in the investing world is, and share a little bit of your story?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm Christina Walbolt, and I am a real estate investment coach. I am a realtor, obviously, and I'm an investor myself. So I started in the business shortly after Dan in 2016, and I actually kind of similar to Dan's story. So the whole reason that I got started in investing is because I worked a corporate job, worked the same corporate job for like 10, 11 years. And at that time I had a 1-year-old at home, and I would go to work. I drop her off at daycare, go to work, come, pick her up, come home, cook dinner, give her a bath, send her to bed. Never got to spend time with her. And I just kept telling myself every single day, I'm like, there's got to be more to life than this, right? Like I had a nice job and everything. I never graduated from college, and I went to school for 3 years, couldn't figure out what I wanted to do, and finally just quit and started this corporate job and worked there ever since. And, I come from a family that you go to high school, you go to college, you get a job, and you work the rest of your life. And I just had a different mindset. It wasn't me. That's not what I wanted to do. And so I had a friend from high school that had made a post on Facebook asking if anybody wanted a work from home job. And I was like, oh, I could make a little extra money. So I started doing it. And little did I know that it was literally handwriting letters to homeowners asking if they wanted to sell their house. And so that's what I started doing. And I would go in every week and, collect my couple $100 that I made for writing out these letters. And then one day I saw a check on his desk for over $10,000. And I was like, that's the kind of money I want to make. Like, how do I do that? So we started talking, and so I actually put in my 2 weeks at my corporate job, jumped all in, went and took my realtor courses. And I did try the traditional route for a little while, and kind of the same as Dan, like I was not a fan of running buyers. It just wasn't my thing. I loved working with buyers, but the amount of time that I spent, I might as well have just worked my corporate job, right? So I got really started in the investment world. I found a niche working with investor buyers, and I loved it. I loved what I did. It was kind of no BS. There's no emotional attachment when you work with investment buyers. So it's either the numbers work or they don't. And it's that simple. So I started working with them. And then what I found was I loved in the investing world. And so I started investing myself, and I invested for a few years before I started coaching. I've been coaching for about 4 years now. My now husband and I were sitting around a table at one point, and we were out with friends, and I'm sitting there writing, like doing some work on my phone. And there were about, 13, 15 of us, and everybody's given me, a hard time about, oh, well, you're always on your phone. You're always working. You're always doing things. And I said, well, that's funny, because I literally just made 10 grand while I was sitting here. So, yeah. So
Mic drop.
yeah, exactly. So, as we were sitting there, he looked at me and he's like, Christina, you have done real estate with every single person at this table. And so people started telling me I should coach, and I'm like, no, nobody's ever going to listen to me. And sure enough, I put a meetup together, and the night of the meetup, more than half the people that came to the meetup signed up for my coaching program. So never thought it would become a big thing, but I'm super passionate about what I do. I like to see other people succeed. My niche is working with the newer investors. So anything from people that, just they heard about it, they want to do it, all the way up to, I'd say, like people that have done 10 deals or less. That's really my niche. I work with people that have done more than that, but somehow that niche just kind of followed me, and it just fell into my lap, and that's what I do. And I love seeing people succeed. And I have 2 kids now. They're now 9 and 6, and I've built my business solely organically. I've done everything myself, and I've raised a family while doing it. And I always tell people that if I can do it, anybody can do it, because I was never the business savvy kind of person. But I'm just very passionate about it, and I'm very passionate about my family. And all I've ever wanted is to be there for my family. And, like Dan said, I don't want to have to miss anything. Like, I don't want to have to miss a school play or, a field trip or anything like that. And honestly, when COVID hit, it was like, crap, we're all stuck at home together. Now I'm the teacher, so I built my business, basically around my kids.
That's incredible. It's such a great story. And to confirm, I do think you're mildly coaching agents too, but you are coaching investors, correct?
Yeah.
Primarily? So
I primarily coach investors. However, I do coach a lot of agents as well. I'm not going to coach agents how to fill out, a KW contract or anything like that. That's not me. But I do coach agents because I think it is so important. I was actually just I was just talking today with somebody who is an investor himself, and he's also an inspector. And he's like, I've tried to work with several different agents, and I tell them what my criteria is, but like I want them to understand how to run the numbers and how investors work. And he goes, literally every single agent that I have, they promise me the world. They promise me that they know how to work with agents. He goes, and then they send me stuff and they have no idea what they're doing. He's like, I don't have the time to do all the legwork. I only want the deals that are sent to me that fit my criteria. And all they do is send me an automated email every day. So it's super important for agents to know truly how to work with investor clients, because it's not just in the best interest of the client, but guys, if you know how to truly run the numbers and find the deals and work with these investors, they're going to come back to you over and over and over again. And that's what's so important about it. I mean, I've got I've got agents that I coach in my group that literally they were like, oh yeah, I'm going to invest myself. And don't get me wrong, they've bought some properties, but they have scaled their real estate business exponentially by utilizing what I've taught them, that they are making so much more money as a real estate agent than they ever have their entire career. And it's just crazy. It's mind blowing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you do any, in addition to the coaching, are you doing any like investor seminars that brings business? Okay. Tell me about those.
Yeah. So every once in a while, I'll either do webinars or, usually once a year, I do a mastermind in Cleveland where it's in person, usually about 20 people. And I'll bring in guest speakers that have a lot of good knowledge and things like that. And I really dive deep into people's businesses. That's one thing that sets me apart from any other coach out there, is that I personalize everything to each individual person. When you sign up to have me as your coach, you are literally getting me as your coach. You're not getting a team member. You're not getting somebody else. And you have direct access to me. You can text me at any time, that kind of thing. And so that's a big thing that sets me apart. And I work with a lot of other people all over the US that are coaches. A lot of my mentors, are coaches as well. And truthfully, you don't get them. I've paid tens of thousands of dollars to be in groups, and I have relationships with the coaches, but if I didn't have that personal relationship with the coach, I'd never talk to them, wouldn't get a chance. So, and then I actually host a meetup that's free and open to the public. I do it every single month in Brunswick, at Winking Lizard, and it's the second Monday of the month. All realtors are welcome, all investors. So if you want to bring your clients or you want to learn how to invest yourself, it's a great place to network.
Yeah, that's such a great idea. And then people talk, like you start to be known as, hey, my friend Christina, she specializes with investors. I think doubling down, it's such a great way to grow business. A question I have here, as you're talking about connections and the referrals, even across the country, it sparked this question. So a lot of people on this call either maybe are newer to working with investors, or they don't necessarily, if they're not an investor themselves, they might not have off-market properties. And it seems like so many investors are like, okay, well, what do you have off market, just because they think it's going to be cheaper? And a lot of times it is. But as many investors are looking for off-market deals, what would you tell the newer agent on this call that doesn't have plenty of off-market connections?
So this is my thing. Like, I love it because I have spent so many years basically perfecting this, right? Like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of deals that you can find on the MLS. If you know how to negotiate, or your agent knows how to negotiate, then they can turn into good deals. But the reality is every single person in the world sees these deals, right? So off market is super, super important. And this goes both ways. It goes for if you are an investor yourself and you want to buy a property, or think about it this way. If you've got a client and they're not finding what they need on the MLS, Well, guess what's going to happen? They're going to get frustrated and they're going to stop looking for properties. That's the last thing you want as an agent. You want to be able, again, to do the legwork and find them those properties and have less competition with those properties. So Dan talked about the trash can method. I love that method. Yeah, it is one way that, you know, I've told people over and over again, go get the trash map. In the winter, make sure you're paying attention to these houses. If there's the driveways aren't plowed, if they're not shoveled, if there's no footprints in the snow, that is a good indication that it might be a vacant property. All right. So we call that driving for dollars. So that is one very free way to market. All right. But there are so many other ways to find these sellers, these homeowners that could become sellers. So one, like I call them motivated sellers, because for an investor, that's what we need, right? Like we do want to find the person that wants to sell at a discount. That's the reality. You know, people ask me all the time, and kind of going off topic here, but people ask me all the time, like, oh, well, you know, you can't buy investment properties with these rates. Well, guess what? You marry the property, you don't marry the rate, right? Like I would rather pay a normal price for a property and have a higher interest rate. And once the interest rates drop, I can go and refinance. But when you overpay for a property, you have no equity in that property. That doesn't make sense for an investor. I mean, truthfully, it doesn't really make sense for a homeowner either, but for an investor, it definitely doesn't make sense. So anyway, so finding these properties off market is super, super important. And again, it goes for both ways, whether you are an investor yourself or you're finding them for your clients and you're bringing the deal to them, right? As an agent, we owe it to our client to find them the house. We owe it to them to find them the deal and negotiate with them. So, or negotiate for them. So now if you are direct to seller is what we call it in the investment world, if you're direct to seller, guess what? You're literally just negotiating with that seller for your client. There's not even another agent involved. That's what's so cool about it. So, so I have a lot of different ways that I find off-market deals, but I actually just had a program that was created for myself as well as my coaching program that is all off-market leads. So it takes all the guesswork out of things. So you can actually pull all the leads, you can market to them. There's lots of different lead types, such as pre-foreclosures, you know, and pre-foreclosures are a great one to hit if you are trying to invest, because those are people that actually need help. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing is, as an investor, you should be looking at sellers like that. Like, stop thinking, ooh, I just need to make a buck. No, how can you help the seller? Because once you get that mindset that you can help that seller and you're helping your buyer, or maybe you are the buyer yourself, but you are helping that seller get out of a bad situation, that money comes. I promise you it does. I've been doing this long enough that I know it does happen. So pre-foreclosures are a great one. But you can pull the leads, you can skip trace them. So for anybody that doesn't know what that means, you can find all their contact information. You can market to them by sending direct mail, email campaigns, all sorts of different things. And then the cool thing too is that you can actually, somebody was talking about, you know, how do you run your numbers? There's a deal analyzer in the program. So whether it doesn't matter how you're getting your money, you can enter in all of the information on, you know, whether it's a loan or, you know, if you're using your own cash, that kind of thing. And then you can enter in all your holding costs, and it does all the math for you. It does have also a repair estimator, but at the very end, once it's all in there, it tells you what your net, if you're going to sell the property, it's going to tell you what your net profit is. It's also going to tell you what your ROI is. It's really, really cool. I love utilizing it. But
what tool is that, Christina?
So it's called Recademy Leads, and it was designed literally, I mean, I literally had it built for me. So cool. If I can put my website in the chat box, and if you go to my if you go to my website, there's some more information on it. But I'm telling you, I don't care if you utilize my CRM system and lead system, but the most important thing is that you have some sort of lead system that you are marketing with, that you are pulling these leads from. And this one is one of the only ones that uses AI technology to find out, to show you who is most likely to sell in the next 90 days, which is so important for real estate agents, because guys, we're out there trying to get listings, right? Like nobody here wants to sit and run buyers all day long. We'd rather have those listings. This is how you get those listings.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter if you're new or if you've been in the business a long time, you have access of finding deals, finding off market properties.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So let's see here. Another question I had is, this is more like, I know you said your niche is like the 0 to 10. Maybe we're on like 0 to 1. Oh, thank you so much for putting your website in the chat. I also, side note, want to plug, Christina also wrote a book that is amazing, and I've got it in my Amazon cart. So we're going to have to add that link as well. So, and Dan has an ebook as well. There's just all the value today. So drop anything you want in the chat there. But so as people are looking to, I'm ready to invest, but I don't know like where I'm going from here. Do I finance? Do I have to have cash? What creative ways would you say you can finance your first deal or get the ball rolling?
I love this question. So I had somebody that I've known for a while, and we've talked about partnering on a deal and whatnot. And so he randomly came to me last week and he's like, hey, I have a deal. Do you want to partner on it? And I was like, sure, cool. Send me the details. So it's in Avon. We're going to flip the property. And so he's like, hey, I've got a little bit of money, but can you raise the rest of the money? So in about 48 hours, I raised $130,000 in what we call private funds. All right. Now, I want to throw out a major disclaimer here that private funds are just that. Okay. There's hard money and there's private money, and people, they interchange them way too much. People ask, oh, anyone know a private money lender? Well, no, a private money lender is somebody you have a relationship with. It can be a friend, it can be a family member, a neighbor, a coworker, somebody that you have an actual relationship with. You don't just go out and say, hey, can you lend me money? Right? Like I always say, it's like courting somebody. Like you've got to have these prior relationships. You take them to dinner, you have drinks together, whatever, you become friends, right? So now they've become your equity partner in the deal. But I stress this because you can't just go and ask somebody on Facebook, like, hey, you want to lend me money? That's totally not kosher at all. So there's hard money, there's private money. Private money are those funds that you get from the people that you know. So maybe Uncle John has some money and he doesn't want to invest it in the stock market because he lost a lot of money. Or I have people that say to me, I literally have all this money sitting here, just sitting in a savings account, and I'm making like 0.3% interest or whatever. Typically on a private money loan, you can get 10 to 15% interest. You're not finding that really anywhere else. So again, it's kind of a win-win situation. Now there's the hard money side of things. This hard money might be a little bit easier for newer people to get, because a lot of times I have new people that come to me and say, oh, I don't know anyone that has money. Like if I knew somebody that had money, I'd have money, believe it or not, everybody knows somebody that has money, even if they think they don't. Yeah. So I do say, like, one thing with private money, I do say, we talk about sphere of influence in every kind of sales position that you have, right? So make a sphere, and I want you to write down 50 people that you know. Doesn't matter if you think they have money or not, just write down 50 people that you know. You're going to categorize them. The number one is people that you know for sure have money. People number two, those are people that may or may not. And people number three, for a fact they don't have money. I'm going to use my sister as an example. She would be a category 3. I know she doesn't have money, but She has talked many times about her, somebody that she works with that has like 6 homes and doesn't know what to do with his money and blah, blah, blah. So again, category 3 now can become a category 1. All right. So going back to the hard money, those are more institutions. They're going to be higher interest. They're going to be, they might have points. You know, I've talked to guys that will lend at 6 points and 15% interest, which is insanely expensive. But here's the deal. I don't care what you have to do to get that money. Just get the deal. Go take out the high interest loan. All you're doing is you are literally holding that money until you can refinance or you sell that property. That's it. If you're going to refinance, if you're going to practice the Burr method, then you're going to refi out into a long-term note that's going to be lower interest. Again, if you sit here and say, oh, I'm not borrowing that money, that's too expensive, you're probably never going to invest in real estate. And I say that, and I don't mean to sound mean, but I see it all the time. People that say, I'm never paying that much. Well, you know what? 5 years later, there they still are. Never invested in real estate, but talk about it.
That's
so you can also get creative and do like seller financing and things like that. There's a lot of other things that people talk about, like sub-2s and things like that. I'm just going to put this out there real quick as a note. You better be careful if you're doing sub-2s, because not all loans are assumable. And if you assume a loan that's not assumable and the bank finds out, guess what? There's the due on sale clause. They're going to hit you that you have to come up with all the money right then and there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's the concept is awesome of sub-2, but I think it could be scary as well.
Yep.
And
research.
Yes. I would like to plug as well, and Mark, if you want to say anything that I miss on it. So being a part of K1, Jose Market Center, whether you're at Elevate, Living, or Legacy, we also have a Wealth by Design program. So it's essentially private funds, private money lending. If you have an investor that's going to be doing a flip, they're not doing it for holds. But if you have an investor looking to flip, you know, Jose runs the numbers on it and says thumbs up or thumbs down. What I like about that versus like a Fund My Flip or like an actual hard money platform is typically that has to go through like 3 appraisals, and oftentimes they fall apart. So if you don't know about Wealth by Design, not that I want to take like the whole time talking about it, ask me, ask Mark. There are connections for your investors.
Just one quick addition to it is you can invest as a lender with Wealth by Design for a minimum buy-in of 10 grand. We're paying prime plus 5%. So like the one that I've got going right now is going to pay me 13.5%. So it's a lower buy-in than normal if you're looking to make money as passively as it comes as a private lender.
Yes. Speaking of flips, Christina, so I know you work with both investors who are holding and using them as long-term rentals and also flips. I've had people ask me all the time, and to be honest, I don't know what the best answer is. What is like a good return on a flip, and how much are investors, like what's a good rule of thumb of what they want to make on a flipped property?
So that's a very good question. You know, it's kind of the same as asking, oh, what do you want your cash flow to be for rentals? Mm-hmm. I have my numbers for what I want, and there's going to always be somebody that has a totally different number, right? So, you know, for my rentals, as long as I am making at least $250 a door, I will consider the deal, right? But I have a lot of people that say, oh, I'm not touching it for less than $500 a door. I have people that'll do it for $100 because they want the learning experience. Same kind of thing with the flips, right? So if I know that I'm going to make 15, 20 grand on a flip, and that's splitting if I've got a partner on it. So if let's just say it's 30 to 40 grand and then we split it, I'm okay with that. Mm-hmm. As long as it's a smaller flip. If it's a larger flip, 15 to 20 grand that I'm bringing home is not enough for me. But if it's a smaller flip, I know I can get it done in about a month or two, then yes, I'll take 15, 20 grand all day. So it really depends on what you want. And it depends on how much you're going to do too, right? So, you know, if flipping's going to be your primary business and that's all you're going to do, well, then either you need to do a lot of $15,000 to $20,000 flips, or you do a few of the bigger ones, you know, the $50,000 to $100,000 flips. It's really how much do you need to make on it? If it's going to net all in all 10 grand or less, or to be honest, even if it's going to net 15 grand or less, I'm not doing it. And again, let me clarify that 15 grand total. So if I'm working with my partner and it's only 15 grand that the two of us are going to make together and split that, it's not worth it to me. That is too much of a risk. If I'm doing the flip myself and I know I'm going to net 20 grand, I'll do it. But if 15 there's too much room for error there. You know, here's the thing. If you hold your property for longer than expected, that can eat away at a lot of your profit. So that's where it's a personal preference. I've got people that say, I'm not doing a flip unless I'm making 50 grand.
Yeah.
So personal preference, but the lower you go, the more risk there is. So I would just be careful with that for sure.
That makes perfect sense. I have another question, and this could be for either one of you. Has anybody touched on, whether it's for yourself or an investor you're working with, the midterm market rental, like for the traveling nurses, et cetera? Would either of you have anything to say on that? Would you give thumbs up, thumbs down, thoughts?
We're not just short-term rentals, we're midterm rentals, and the way we structure our calendar is like the further out the vacancy is, or the further out you want to book, we have a higher net minimum because we do want to hit those short-term or those midterm rentals. We also, like, around this time of the year, like I would say like now through April, it tends to slow down a little bit outside of the holidays. So we do some midterm rentals, like 3-4 month rentals. We actually did one in Strongsville. I think we were getting like $6,000 a month for a 2-bedroom in Strongsville, but it's just because it's so difficult to find a furnished rental, something that's ready to go, temporary. You don't want to stay in a hotel. So we do allow that, but overall short term is more profitable for us.
Okay. That's almost what I was leaning towards, like, which is the better avenue, which is going to give you a better return. I've actually even heard Troy Bratz, I don't know if he's on this call, but I believe he has a pretty cool story. Had a property he was going to sell, and then ended up, he was able to put sellers who basically they needed a home in between, and he now has a property that he does like short-term and midterm rental on as an opportunity for his clients, which I thought was pretty brilliant. Okay, so I want to open up the floor to anybody on the call. Is there anything we didn't cover, whether it's between midterm, short-term, long-term rentals, flips, that would help you or an investor that Christina or Dan could answer? All right, you guys packed the value, so we don't have any other questions. Christina, did you put your link? Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. So I wanted to make sure she got that. I want to read both of them. You guys are incredible. I feel like I'm going to be calling both of you personally to coach me. We've just started. It's funny. I think there's so many. Christina, I love that you specialize in that 0 to 10 deals, because you rip the Band-Aid with the first deal, but then it's almost like it's scary. Like, do I keep buying? What do I do? So I love that you specialize in the beginning. And anything else either of you wanted to add or say before we close out?
I would just say you guys are all agents. I would look into investing and just have a goal. It doesn't have to be right now, but just get started. whether that's like just practicing running numbers, but I truly believe that's where wealth is made, is investing, whether that be in real estate or whatever. Obviously, my avenue is real estate. And just get started. Start having conversations, just start learning about it. It doesn't have to be Airbnbs, it doesn't have to be flips. It's whatever you want it to be. But again, traditionally speaking, like real estate is one of the safest investments you can make. And again, there's risk to everything. But if you buy a house today, and it's cash flowing, it's only going to get better if you want to sell it in 10, 20, 30 years from now. Like it's like traditionally property is going to appreciate. So if it works out on the cash flow side, again, the appreciation is just the cherry on top. So my challenge to everyone is just get started, whether it's actually buying a house or just starting to research.
Yep, I would agree. I mean, if you've been thinking about there's no, let's see, one of my mentors, Austin, he made a post the other day. The best time to buy real estate was yesterday. The next best time is today. And it's true. If this is something you've been thinking about, or you start thinking about, the best thing that you can do is go out there and actually do it. And the other thing is just be consistent. Whatever you do in life, make sure that you're consistent. I have a lot of people that think, oh, I'm gonna do real estate stuff today, and then they don't do anything for a week. Well, it's like working out. If you don't work out for a while, it's really hard to get back into it. It's the same kind of thing. There are so many people out there that, can support you. And the only other thing that I would say along those lines is don't necessarily believe everything that you see on TikTok and all of that, because I've seen some very interesting concepts out there that really just make me cringe. But a lot of people doing things illegally, unethically, things like that. And it just, it definitely makes me cringe. So go out there, don't reinvent the wheel. If you are looking to invest, go find somebody that can help you invest. Go find a coach, go find a mentor, find somebody, because it's just, they've already paved the path. They know what they're doing, and they're going to show you. Get in the rooms with the people that are doing what you want to be doing and where you want to be.
And we have one more quick question. How do we get names for pre-foreclosure?
So Mary, on my program, Recademy Leads, you can pull pre-foreclosures on there. There are other programs out there. I couldn't tell you how much they cost or anything like that. But if you are interested, go to my website. There's more information on there. You can also email me, and we can have a phone call or whatever. I can talk to you a little bit more about it. That goes for anybody, not just Mary, but absolutely.
Thank you so much. And Mark, I think you wanted to say something real quick before we close?
Just quick little PSA is 2 weeks from today, same time on Zoom. I'm going to be interviewing Kobe Socher on how to become your best and most profitable client, kind of continuing on in this conversation. We're going to nerd out a little bit on tax stuff, kind of building a deal machine as it relates to real estate investing. So it'll be fun 2 weeks from today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Christina and Dan, you are both wonderful and amazing. We thank you so very much. Don't miss Mark and Kobe in 2 weeks, and everyone have a great rest of their day.